Welcome, Alissa, to the Bits and Bank podcast. Alissa is a fearless leader who's pushing boundaries in the credit union world. As EVP and CEO at AmeriCU, she's known for shaking up lending, strategy, and member experience with her unique twist. Now, for every serious discussion, we start with a joke. Alissa and I have a common thread in Dave Matthews' iconic singer. You know you're a true Dave Matthews fan in the credit union world when you start calling the annual budget review process as the space between, as in the space between what you want and what the board approves.
I have been waiting for that joke, and it lived up to the hype. So that was
good. Because I got one more. I got to get it off my chest. Alissa, you know you're a true Dave Matthews fan when you can turn crash into me into a positive, like when a member's loan application lands right into your inbox.
You are. That's good. That's good. I appreciate the alignment because, you have to have fun in what you do, and you just made it. My personal love for Dave Matthews and my professional love for credit union. You just align the two. So thanks.
Awesome. Great. All right, let's jump in. So just to set context, credit unions today are competing in a fast evolving space where member expectations are rising. And there's also this generational gap between members in, let's say the 50 plus age group and then the younger members having preferences around how they want to interact with the credit unions. And you have feet on both the pods and you got to be best in class. We were just speaking about that prior to recording. So you got that dynamic that's playing out. You also have macro risk, higher interest rates, so on and so forth. There's also the micro risk of turbulence in the consumer profile in terms of the risk, credit risk and fraud and so on and so forth. So those are picking up. And then you've got a competitive landscape of tier one institutions, mid-market financial institutions, and fintechs. So there's a lot going on in the ecosystem that the credit unions today, and especially the mid-market credit unions that operate. So what does that mean? Ideas are galore around digital transformation, but this concept of taking ideas to execution and getting really best in class in execution is very critical. And unfortunately, it's like a short fuse. You don't have much room to make mistakes from that perspective, right? And that's where, Alissa, wanted to kind of drive this whole ideas to execution in today's and double click on that with your vast experience. So your first question was, from your experience, what is that secret sauce of talent, technology, analytics, and performance measurement which achieves best in class execution and faster results?
I think first and foremost, it's having the right people in the right seats, man. Like if you look back at what you're trying to do, first it starts in strategic planning. Organizationally, as you stated, I think credit unions are most challenged with trying to be everything to everyone. And there's, in our opinion, two very distinctive verticals that we're trying to serve, where if you're a big bank or a fintech lender, you really have one thing to focus on. We have two. We have our core traditional banking members, and then we have this new age type of member that really demands an ease of banking application or organization that they can do what they want to do, when they want to do it, and how they want to do it. So it's hard for smaller or mid-sized organizations to have that agile view on both segments. And you have to, because you don't want to lose that personal touch and your traditional banking members. That's quite honestly most of the membership that credit unions have. But if you're looking to grow and really rapidly grow in financial services, you have to have the strategy built out. And I think for us, if we look back, it's making sure you have the right people in the right spots that can drive both of them, but also having people focused on both of them separately, because focusing them at the same time has caused us at least some pain and some missteps. And I think when we look at the environment of the sophistication, you kind of talked a little bit about not just the sophistication of the member, but the sophistication of fraudsters, of things happening in our ecosystem. Lending 20 years ago looks very different today. Lending 20 years ago, you had a box, yes, and then you went outside the credit box when it made sense. Now today, there's like hundreds of factors that you're expecting one human to look at, and it's just not even a feasible approach anymore if you want to expand and grow in your lending. So you have to use partners, tools, technology that make you relevant and safe and sound as you're doing it. So you have to look for, in my opinion, partners that are sharing your vision with you, wanting to grow, realizing that you have gaps in talent potentially that can drive and get you where you need to do pretty immediately. So not only are you driving that member experience through the digital channels, you have to drive the employee experience too. When I partner with let's just call it a fintech or an AI company, that's the first thing I'll say to them. What is my employee experience going to look like? Because in today's day and age, they don't always have the experiences that they may need to have to drive the new technology, right? They haven't been exposed to it enough. So I always say you need to make sure that the back end processes or whatever needs to be done is just as easy for the employee as it is for that member for us to be successful. Because that's where we have fallen before. We've created this amazing member experience. And then you look on the back end and there's so many holes or manual processes that you end up doing that you didn't account for because it wasn't process mapped right. There's a lot that goes into being, a digital first tech forward company, in the back end operational unit that I think sometimes we're so focused on that front end member experience that we forget to also correlate it to the back.
So I'm going to share an anecdote with you. I so resonate with what you say. So let's just take a scenario where somebody's applying in a dealer for an auto, let's say a new auto. So it's an indirect auto channel from your perspective. And we leverage fintech, AI, auto decisioning capabilities. And let's say we are able to, in 6 or 7 seconds, auto approve an application. So we've gone from the bar of taking an hour to do it, now down to 7 seconds, right? Super. But to your point around, once that is done, the next set of steps leading up to the fruition of that particular loan getting booked, there are a set of process steps to kind of close out that particular loan. And those have not, to your point, you just cannot transform as in this example, not just transform the decisioning, but also downstream credit administration processes have to be also done to that level so that you are the chosen lender when that particular applicant has 5 or 6 different choices who are best in class across that entire thread of decisioning and the fruition and credit administration process. So if you did something in 7 seconds here, but it took half an hour to kind of do the rest of the steps, you lost that battle. You lost that particular applicant, right? So and then you and I were speaking just prior to the pod, this whole mindset around efficiency and depersonalization with personalization, finding the right blend between them is also very critical. In some scenarios, it's all about efficiency. In some scenarios, let's say it's wealth planning or somebody's filling up an SMB application and they have questions, yes, there's an efficiency and digifying the process, but there's also a very strong element of somebody hand-holding you where you need that human help, and providing FAQs or an LLM-based chat responses might not be sufficient. So really having that emotional, IQ in the leadership to be able to drive that change, but keeping just the right level of personalization while not compromising in efficiency is very critical. That balance is very critical there, right?
Yeah, and they have to be aware. And I mean, honestly, there's technologies today that we are investigating and really talking about that it's like the biometrics that understand the human emotion if they're on the phone. Like, so I do think you talk about emotional intelligence, and depending upon, the level of skill that you have to hire in, for a variety of things. You could have a call center agent that maybe isn't experienced to pick up on that, but now there's this technology that's picking up on it and can alert leadership when you have emotion, like a high emotion is starting to happen on a call, right? And you may want a supervisor to be able to come into that, or where you see the frustration happening on a chat bot, right? Where they're getting really upset. They're not getting the return that they want. And that's alerting you to have that follow-up personalization to them. That's critical in this, right? For credit unions, we can't be just a digital first organization. That's not what our core people helping people philosophy is built on. You have to have these things and be talking about them and thinking about them, because you can lose sight. I mean, just speaking from, our own perspective, when you're so hyper focused on a strategy that is so technology driven, you can sometimes, what takes a back seat is the member service. Like, you can sometimes lose sight of that. And as credit unions, I think that's the number one thing that as we go through these transformations in the organization, you always have to bring it back to the member and the employee, the people helping people philosophy. And okay, what does our out look like? If we're trying to drive them to these digital channels, and what if they don't want to be there? Like, how do we make sure that transition back to the human touch is happening in such a way that they still feel cared about and they feel important to the organization, but also they have the conveniences that they all want too, right? It's a world we're living in. Like I said in the beginning, it's hard to be everything to everyone, but that's almost the space that credit unions are trying to play in. So if we're just focused in these, like I told you, like these two lanes, and always with the member service and the employee up front, that's where I think we're finding our most success being in, so that we're not having the same people focused on both, because that's where one takes a precedent over the other often. And I do think it's really, important as you're kind of going, I don't want to say through the motions and the status quo of traditional banking, because you still have to be really, really good at that. But then you have this visionary next generation of banking that you're trying to be too. And that part's really obviously exciting, right? Everyone has the table stakes, the standard banking, come in, cash your check every week, help with, balancing and checkbooks and taking a loan in person. That's always going to be our bread and butter. We have to remain really, really good at that. But now this other avenue of ways to drive, we're a military credit union. We have members in every country in the world. We have members in every state across the country. We have to serve them at every aspect of their life at all different times, right? So for us, we've got to make sure we have the tools, the technology, the processes, and also the fraud in place to do that. So if you've got someone that's deployed overseas, and they still have to financially take care of what's happening at home too. So we pride ourselves in making sure that we have the ability to serve them and protect them at the same time. So we're always looking at different ways to bring fraud tools in play, because it's all about scalability. When you're a mid-size, like we're a $3 billion organization, and you can't keep throwing bodies. It's just not, it doesn't work. You can't keep throwing bodies at solving problems. So we always try to approach it first, like, let's diagnose the issue and what technologies do we already have that can help, or what do we need to look for to solve the scenario. I think that's something we always start with. We always look at people, process, technology in solution, when we're trying to solution a situation. So it's your first question, getting back to your first question, it's having the right people to drive your strategy forward is, in my opinion, the secret sauce that seems so simple, yet so powerful. If you have those right people to drive that and really get it, I think our focus over the next 12 months is scalability, to be able to serve members. We've seen rapid growth at AmeriCU, even in the lending. Let's just take the lending space. We've seen us going from 1,000 units to 3,000 units to 5,000 units. We were hitting 6,000 units with the same infrastructure that we've had doing 1,000 units. So when I talk to you about, we were so hyper-focused in the last 5 years in strategy about the member experience and getting things done in 7 seconds and moving things forward, then we were realizing, oh, look at the bottleneck happening in the back, the back office of trying to do everything. So that's where our next focus is, and bringing in technologies that allow us to scale. It pains me nothing more than having to slow lending down because you don't want to have the service standards in the marketplace that aren't what you're accustomed to. So we've got to figure out, like, that's the problem we're solving for now. I don't want there to be limits in what we can do. I want to see us going up to 10, 15,000 units a month, with that infrastructure. So that's how we focus to plan out what you're trying to do from a technology perspective and marry it into our organization. You have to be agile. Yeah, you have to be agile and be willing to work with partners.
Yep, I agree. And, just one thought popped in my head in the last part of what you're just saying right now is you also have to look at member experiences across their life cycle, right? From acquisition, where a lot of obsession is there to, drive 8,000, 9,000 applications, like you said. That's great, funded loans through the door. But then there's also this aspect of member marketing, which is cross-sells and such, cross-sell, upsells at the right time with the right triggers, but then also member servicing in collections. And there's strong elements of technology, analytics, infrastructure, and digitization that needs to happen in those areas too. So it's sometimes easy to get a really good front end to this whole thing, the point of sale, the lending origination system, the AI that drives thing. But if at the back end of it, you're not looking at the member journey or member profitability and member experiences, so it's all combined in, it's like a chevron that connects up. Driving those pieces also becomes very critical, where again, technology, management, gravitas, processes, the right level of digitization, the space between personalization and efficiency has to be handled very carefully in those areas too, so that the entire journey feels like a blend between efficiency and personalization, not just at the point of acquisition, right? So those also become very critical here, right?
100%. And I would say to you, that's probably, that is one of our biggest challenges at AmeriCU, right? We have a CRM. We have that's one of the technologies I would say to you that we have stumbled through implementation, and truly getting to the point you're talking about with it is just life cycle of a member, and truly looking at it from an ROI perspective of a member. That is something that hindsight's always 2020, would have approached that deployment completely different to where it is now, because we're 4 years into a CRM that quite honestly has been being used as a taskmaster, is what I like to call. Very expensive taskmaster, and not necessarily billing out, those life cycle, you talk about just, let's just say an auto loan, right? We have a really good direct dealer program that we have at AmeriCU, and that's where a lot of our loan volume has come from this year. And, just in the simplest format, we put them right into our new member journey, like they're a typical member coming into us, but they're truly they look and behave like an indirect member. So we look at that and as we don't know them, they don't know us. We haven't done enough time spending to really deepen the relationship with them, as well as their credit criteria, right? Like you said, like you have to follow them through their life stages, because if you don't, that's where your losses come in. You need to be able to be predictive in your losses and be prepared to help people before they become unhelpable.
Absolutely.
That's one area for us, because we did see some high delinquency at our credit union in the past year, twice as much as our peers. Because in the past we were doing some lending that was hitting the marks from a margin perspective. Great, but economically things have shifted, and at the time you're great. credit quality was wonderful. It hit all the things, great VTI, but you transitioned and the economy did a pivot, if you want to call it. And we weren't prepared, I mean, we did some like completely rebuilding of that unit, to credit. We even named them credit solutions, out of your traditional mindset of collections and a negative contents, component. And what we do now is just that we've got to get better. That's an area when we look forward to the future. Again, I said over the next, it's the experience of the back end. It's really using predictive analytics in those spaces so we can follow that member, make sure that they're a healthy, happy, profitable member to us moving on. But we're also living our vision and mission. Like we want to be an admired organization in every community we serve. We also want to make sure that we're giving our members all the education they can possibly get to live life, dream big, and achieve financial success. That is through all stages of life, which goes into the back end of credit. And life happens to people, right? You can have the best credit model in the world, and it doesn't always.
Yep. And I think the financial
technology, that the behavioral stuff needs to come into it because.
I think financial literacy, financial wellness, as advisory being put in at different points in the life cycle, and kind of saying, hey, let us come into the branch. Let's talk about these areas as you kind of move on to whatever the next marker life stage you have. Here are your choices. Here are the things you got to watch out for from a gotcha perspective. Here are the things that you got to do. To your point, that kind of proactive education will help downstream issues which burn both the member and the credit union, right? So it's in the benefit of both sides to be able to have that kind of thing. Okay.
The biggest issue we find is people, they don't call you back. Like literally, it's not like it was 15 years ago. If someone got in trouble, they immediately called you and said, I need help. More traditional behaviors today are avoidance. If I avoid it, it's not happening. And so we really being proactive with your membership and having that information early enough to help them, right? And providing that financial literacy and education constantly, that we're here, having financial counselors in your branches to help with budgets are critical. That's that personalization part, right? And we can give you all of the online tools in the world, but the member still needs to know, come to us if you're starting to struggle or panic, and we will help you. That's the messaging we want to get out and be more proactive first, so that we've seen it's amazing. So at the beginning of the year, we've seen 40 basis point reduction in our delinquency in a 6 month. I can tell you, I can't, there's a lot of peers I know that can't say that, right? Like because of these approaches that we've taken it when we look at people, process, and technology and how to solve it. That's really,
huge. That's huge.
It's absolutely huge. You couldn't believe, like, if we were talking 5 years ago, pre-COVID, post-COVID, right? Pre-COVID, people pick up their phone. People do not pick up their phone now. If you don't have the basic texting functionality in your organization, as basic as that,
that's true,
you are going to struggle. Like I bring it back to like basics for credit unions. Like I love the industry we work in. It is the most cooperative industry. I've been in credit unions now 20 years, banks prior. We lean on each other, and I love that part of it. That's why I'll never work in a different industry, because we all are facing some of the same challenges. And the best part about it is I get to do these podcasts with you and talk about our passions and what we're doing. And I'm serve on boards. I serve on advisory boards. And it's, for me, the most successful thing I've done in my career is align with other credit unions and vendors to drive results, because we're all in it together. In my opinion, credit unions are less than 10% of the market. We are not competitors. We work together. Yeah. And that's what I think, the QSO model, you and I have talked about that, is a model that I wholeheartedly believe in. Just helping each other out to serve members in the right way is like everything to who I am as a person. So awesome. It's definitely my driving force.
It's been a great conversation. I'm going to end it with one last question for you, is if there's one or two advices that you wanted to give to your peer group of executives in credit union, what would what in the areas of balancing personalizations to efficiency, or around setting up the leadership culture, which drives a very nuanced view of how do you run these various workflows and scenarios with members and credit union across the member life cycle. What would be one or two pieces of advice that you would give?
First and foremost, for me, because of both where I've seen some failures in it and successes, that you got to start with your people. You got to do people assessments. And there's a lot of fear in that. Especially in the credit union space, because we have longevity of employees. In my opinion, if you're a coachable employee, you have a spot in my organization. If you're not coachable, that's a different conversation. But I also think it's taking the time to do an assessment of your staffing model that's aligned to their strategy and what you're trying to accomplish with member service and with technology, and really, really being honest at the executive level, because you can't, when you're going through transformation, that's change. Change is the hardest thing to manage through, in my opinion, because it brings fear into an organization, fear for a lot of things, fear for not being great at something you already knew how to do, or not being valued, or not being here, right? Not having a job. And I think the approach that you can take to the people part of really making an assessment of, is first and foremost, is this employee coachable? Is this someone that can be coached in the organization, and making that determination right off? And yes, if it's yes, okay, where is the right fit for the behaviors and the experience that this person has? And then really being honest of, okay, if I want to do this, if I want to bring in a whole AI strategy into the organization, and I don't have that talent, don't put it on someone that doesn't have the talent. You got to build out that infrastructure and bring in the talent. And that could be a partner too, not necessarily a person, but be open. If you're looking at a strategy, what I think people what tend to fail in organizations, and I have done this personally, is you develop the best strategy that honestly, like, knock it out of the park, and then you don't have the infrastructure to execute on it.
Got it.
And that's down to people. That to me is like 101. Take the time. Once you're done with strategy, take the time to make sure that you have the infrastructure and skill set and to drive it, or you will misstep and it will take you longer to achieve. That's my definitely one takeaway just from experience.
Perfect. This is great. This has been an awesome podcast. Now, the most important question, this weekend you're going to go watch Dave Matthews, right?
Yeah.
What is one song that you're really, really looking for? Which is your favorite one?
Virginia in the Rain. I know it's, yeah, not a typical Dave song, but it is my ultimate favorite song. And I'm always blessed. I see him probably a minimum of 10 times a year, maximum of 20. I'm a little bit crazy. I've followed him. We've gone to see him in Europe. We see him in Mexico every year. This year we're going to make our first journey out to the Gorge.
Yes, we talked about that.
Labor Day weekend, 3 days of him. So I've been blessed to see him play it. This year he's only played it once on his tour. And it was just last week. So I'm fearful he's not going to play it in Saratoga tonight or tomorrow.
I see.
And I'm still hoping, if you're a Dave fan, you're always usually chasing one song. I am chasing Beach Ball. I've never heard that live from him. Okay. Older song of his. Yeah. I thought I'd hear it in Mexico, but I didn't. But yeah, loved every concert. I want to hear Virginia in the Rain, and I've always been chasing Beach Ball. So.
Okay, cool. Mine has been the space between that. I always found a very deep meaning in that song. You could apply to different aspects, whether it's your professional life or personal life. So that was kind of been my favorite song.
Wow, it was an epic opening joke. I did enjoy it.
I appreciate that. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Alissa. Appreciate your candor, and I will put your contact details in the podcast so that people can reach out to you and seek advice. And you provided a lot of critical perspectives. You have a bigger vision and horizon there. I can clearly see that, and folks who are on the digital transformation journey, which pretty much a lot of the 1 billion plus credit unions are aggressively on, they can benefit from that experience. So I'll put that in there. Thank you. Thanks for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Ron.